Good morning. My name is Reg Hunter. I'm with Fiatech. This is a Voice of the Owner session. Most of you are aware we've conducted many Voice of the Owner sessions in the past. This is number 16. I'll show you a slide that delineates what that is. Today's discussion is actually quite interesting because it gives you insight into how we plan to progress our productivity advancement initiatives in a social media kind of way. I think you'll get a lot out of it. But this is really set up as a go-to meeting, and so if you have questions or comments or any thoughts that you want to share, this is the environment to do it. This is not a webinar. This is not like where we sit and talk to you for an hour and then you go away thinking, what the heck was that? It's much better for you to challenge what you're hearing or question what you're hearing or refine it and hold us accountable to making sure we provide as much value and insight as we can. This video is being, as I said before, we're making a recording of this. It's going to be posted in Slack. It's going to be pushed into YouTube. Deb will send a follow-up email to all the owners that we have in our distribution list for that. So you'll hear a great deal about those kinds of things. The topic for today is owner-driven approach to realizing sustainable productivity advancement. How's that for a mouthful? So just to kind of recap where we are, let me go to full screen here. So this is the 16th in the Voice of the Owner discussion topics. You can see all of them listed here. I'm not going to read them. One of the, originally we had all of these located in SharePoint that was hosted for us by E2 Open. It was very difficult for people to reach in. Only a handful of people reached in. But now we've posted all the different presentations that you see here into an environment that we'll be discussing today that's called Slack. So you can go into these environments. You can go into the Slack environment and essentially watch the video, look at a number of different documents that people have turned over and become familiar with any of these 16 topics. And as we progress, obviously, we'll keep adding it. So now we've provided much better accessibility for everyone. So as you can see, the very last one, which is number 16, is the one we're doing today. Let's see first. So we have a database of only owners that we invite to these Voice of the Owner discussions. You can see them on the right-hand side. It varies. There's about 130 to 140 different individuals from different owner organizations that we invite, and we get anywhere to 30 to 60 people logging in and participating, and then we follow up by sending them an email with the links to YouTube of this, also to Slack. What's interesting about this, unlike most of our other Slack environments that relate to productivity advancement, this is open to any owner. Any owner, if you know of an owner that you think should be involved, but you don't see their name on the right-hand side, just send me an email and we'll add them into it. It's hunter@fiatech.org. And again, what we do is we upload videos from discussions into the Slack environment along with documents. So any owner can reach into this environment and become familiar with what the discussions are that are taking place between owners. Are there any questions about that? Okay, so Deb, I think that Deb McNeil is with us from Dow, and for the most part, these are her slides. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what the environment looks like later on, but go ahead, Deb. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone, or good evening, or good night if you're on the other side of the world. I'd really like this to be a discussion this morning. We've met several times as owners, and we're trying to really drive an understanding by all the owners of how do we get to where we want to get to. We know what's needed. We need to gather the industry knowledge, understand how to apply it to our company's challenges. But really would like to get your thoughts on how do we do that. So we're going down a path to generate productivity advancement targets and the success enablers that allow those to happen, and gather industry knowledge against those. So love to hear your thoughts today. Does anyone have anything you want to participate with initially?
Is there anyone involved that is not familiar with productivity advancement targets, at least in a broad way?
Would you mind sort of giving us a quick 5-minute rundown of what the overall objectives are and what the deliverable is?
Yeah, I think that's what the front end of this will have in it. And again, you can just send me an email, and I'll be glad to walk through it individually with you. But if it isn't covered, it'll show you where we are, how we got here, and what the expectations are. Okay.
Yeah. So those of you who have been involved in the conversation, be a little bit patient with us. We always have some folks coming in new, so we'll take about 5-10 minutes, go back through the history just a little bit, and then hopefully get into the discussion of how we go forward. So next slide, Reg. I think one of the main messages for today is definitely that the owners are the key component to driving this for the industry. If I think back of where Fiatech actually started, it was a group of owners who got together and said, we can't solve this individually by ourselves. We have to step and work together to help the industry solution providers understand what we need and what will work for us and what won't. So you guys are the key to making this happen. And Dow's in the game, and I'd like you guys to come join us. So next slide. We are all actively trying to build industry awareness and industry energy around a value-driven look at how we advance the capital industry productivity. We all have seen all the data that says we're not there. So anything you can do to help us connect or publicize the message, which is basically the technology is there. We just have to figure out how to grab it, bring it into our work processes, and deliver the results. So one of the main differences in how we're approaching the challenge, if you will, today is for the owners to keep saying, we want this value, we need this value, we need to become more productive as an industry. So next slide. So what we've done is, with the initial conversation during the last leadership forum, was to say what are the areas that have value to the industry from a value delivery context. And what we did is we ended up with 12 performance enhancement targets, where we said this is where the money is. This is where we believe technology applied correctly with the right work processes will deliver improved productivity for a capital project industry. And when we added it all up and did a cost model, we ended up with potentially a 33% decrease in cost and a 10% faster execution. And that's, I think, as owners, that's really what we need to keep our eye on is, are we doing the right things to deliver that result for us? So the way we decided to approach this is to divide up the opportunity areas into productivity advancement target teams, get the owners, operators, EPCs, and solution providers, academics, everyone who has industry knowledge in a particular area to come together, put it on the table, what we already know, and then understand what we don't know and begin to charter teams to go get those answers. So I don't know, Ted, anything you want to say or add to that from Southern Company?
I think that was a great summary, and we're in the boat rowing with you.
Yeah. I'd like to point out real quick that this is unique. Instead of talking about some interesting technology, what we're talking about is, at the end of the day, the economic impact of being able to do things better has been articulated in these productivity advancement targets. And these numbers are huge, but it's a matter of being diligent enough to drive through to go harvest it. So this is for real money. That's essentially costs that are avoidable. So the hope is that when owners reflect on where their inefficiencies are and where their opportunities are, that they'll realize that they can take advantage of these initiatives in order to help better their performance and the performance of their projects.
Yeah, I think one thing that's frustrating to me as an owner in my primary role right now for Dow is to drive project productivity improvement, is that the technology is there. The practices are there. We have pockets of excellence everywhere. What we haven't been able to do is tie it all together and make it understandable so it could be implemented totally within one company's work process. I think anyone who's able to grab a hold of this and do it will obviously have a big competitive advantage on getting capital facilities on the ground. So, next slide.
Yep, and you see one last point here.
Question?
It's what you got here, just real quick, is you have, think about the collage of skills and resources that we're talking about here. You have, owners and operators, EPCs, solution providers, services providers, academia. They're all involved in this. So any one person might be brilliant on one component, but might be weak in others. But if you take it in aggregate, is what we're really talking about here.
Good deal. Thanks, Rich. So here are the productivity advancement targets. If you glance through those, the ones that are sort of upfront are change readiness. The research shows that we're not very good at implementing these and sustaining these kind of changes across multiple projects. Owner-initiated change. We all know that's an area of opportunity for each of the owners and the EPC firms that have to deal with us as we make those changes. Interactive project planning, integrated project planning, regulatory streamline, which there's a lot of great work going on there in the building area. And then, to me, one of the significant changes is to really refocus focus away from engineering productivity and refocus the design front end into what does it take to drive construction productivity and facility handover to operations. So, as you can see, we've identified in all those multiple success factors, elements that it takes to deliver that. And now we're saying, let's go put our industry knowledge against those and see what we have and what we don't have. So the other big ones are integrated materials management, advanced work packaging, getting the data from the field, and then getting the data to flow. Number 11, handover. And then obviously we still want to keep our eye on the technology that's out there and evolving and figure out how to bring it in. So I think we've got most of the opportunity areas covered. And where we are right now is identifying and validating those success enablers it takes to deliver that result. Getting some kind of echo, so if everybody can mute, that would be great. So what is a success enabler? It really says it's the element or the activity that you need to have in place to deliver the productivity advancement. So we're looking at organization, again, those pockets of excellence, and say, what did they have? What did they do to get that result? And trying to bring that together into a holistic picture so that an owner can self-assess and determine what they have and what they're missing.
Hey, Deb, we're getting some chat things that people are indicating they're having trouble hearing you. So I don't know if you can move the mic around at all or not.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, it sounds better.
Okay. So we're currently gathering success enablers for each of the productivity advancement targets that really provide the foundation and focus. And then we're going to ask those with industry knowledge to place their solutions or their knowledge up against those. So that if I'm an owner, for example, and I want to work on reducing my change orders, I know that I can talk to Mike Pye and understand what they've done for a ripple cost model that says, how do you make the whole cost of that change visible so you can make a better decision. So I begin to understand who has what knowledge and how does it fit into the whole picture? And do you want to add, Reg?
No, I think that's good. By the way, if someone still has their phone on or their speaker on their computer on, or excuse me, their microphone, and we're hearing some secondary echo, so it sounds a little bit like Deb's in a Grand Canyon. So if you could be cognizant of that and mute your microphone, that would be really great.
Okay, so how are we gathering all this knowledge? Reg is going to talk to you about the Slack environment we're setting up. But basically, we're going out to all the industry groups and providers and saying, come show us what you got, link it up to the success enablers, and help us understand how the pieces fit together to deliver a certain productivity advancement target. So I think the consensus when we last talked about this as a group was we thought we had 70 to 80% of what we need to know. We just haven't packaged it in such a way that an owner can grab a hold of it, assess where they are, and move forward. So our goal is to go out to all the industry organizations and engage with them, but then also go into the owners, EPCs, technology providers, really gather everybody up and say, let's go put what we know on the table and see how we can move forward to deliver this. So,
can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
On your early slides, when you talked about the different PATs and everything, and I'm not sure if you're going to cover this later, but is there, to what extent do you believe one of the obstacles is lack of a more intelligent contractual framework between owners and EPCs to align interests on the adoption of these kinds of technologies? Because I haven't heard anything yet about. It's a very technology-focused discussion. This one threatens to be, and perhaps I'm misjudging it. And there's a lot of other on change management, but it's the contracting spine that really pulls it all together. And I'm wondering how much attention is being given to that.
Yeah, if you go look at the success enablers, a lot of them are around. You have to have the right contracting strategy in place, or the right alignment of scorecard. So it's all in there, and or you tell me if it's all in there. But a lot of it's in there in the success enabler level. So look at those. If you think we're missing some in that area, but definitely understanding that's a big piece of the puzzle, right? Is getting that piece right.
Yeah,
Chris, one thing we do have to be careful of, we do have antitrust guidelines. So talking about contracting, which typically involves pricing strategies and things like that, we can't get very specific around that other than very generic. And in general, I think it's a best practice to avoid things that talk about the contracting and procurement. We want to give no indication at all, we don't want to give the perception at all that we're talking about price fixing or anything like that.
Yeah.
No, of course I understand
definitely.
that, but the contract is one of the key documents that explains to the contractor what it is that the owner wants, and so there is without getting into pricing or anything like that, there's still some way that the contracts can be used as a vehicle to really explain to an EPC who may not necessarily be as advanced in the thinking as an owner, okay, this is what we want. This is what we want as an outcome, and as well as giving some guidance on how that outcome could be achieved, and that having that contractual language aligned, I think could be a vehicle and a big enabler to making progress.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Richard,
I
agree as enabling, no question, but I think we really need to avoid specifics around that because, again, we don't want to give the perception that we're here to leverage or boycott or any kind of antitrust or anti-competitive behavior.
Absolutely not. You don't need to worry. You don't need to mention vendors. You don't need to mention pricing. But in terms of an owner specifying, okay, this is what we want to achieve, and giving some guidance on the expectations around that, you don't need to be getting into any of that kind of problem.
And you
No,
get
I
into
agree.
that, I
I
guess
think
what I'm.
I think
yeah. Okay.
we're gonna definitely have to walk that line, and I think, for example, we do have areas where we're actively working. You know, how does an owner write a good contract for advanced work packaging? It doesn't have anything to do with pricing or strategy. It just says, as an owner, help me understand, EPC firm, how I can write a contract that really drives a good collaborative advanced work packaging result, for example.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So yes, definitely including that in these PATs. In fact, the Fiatech already has a team that's met several times on just that issue. How do you drive good advanced work packaging best practice through your contract? So, but I understand we want to protect. We don't want to go anywhere close to antitrust, and we want to make sure everybody gets to protect their technology. So one of the ways we see this working is that if we say we have a need, the EPC says, well, here's what we know about that. But then we can also go out to the solution providers and say, what solution do you have to place against that need? Or what example do you have that you're willing to share? Even just knowing in a particular area that there's solutions, not even what they are, just that the fact that they exist, would help an owner that says, okay, I want to go work in a particular area. Who do I talk to, right? So this allows the solution providers and those with industry best practice knowledge to say, I have value here, that can be applied in this space. So we think there's a role for everybody to play, with the underlying goal to get the industry moving forward and off a dead center on productivity. So, anything you want to add, Reg or Ted or anybody?
Yeah, I think the antitrust is like you have to have a religious conviction to that and be very continually concerned about it. But I mean, you can come down to data accessibility, right? I mean, some very, very fundamental things like who owns the data and who's going to provide access and who maintains it. There's some first tier stuff that are very that aren't really targeting a specific platform, individual, or practice. That raising awareness that's an enabler of finding solutions is probably good, because obviously we have the silos and the world of worlds that we've talked about before, problems and stuff. So being able to communicate across these boundaries is really important. So to kind of, Deb, these are the ones to help people visualize. Is there any other questions?
Actually, for owners, for owners, it's in our interest to stimulate competition and create, as far as possible, a level playing field between the suppliers. So the kind of contracting framework I was thinking of was exactly aimed at that, which is stimulating more competition and having less lock-in to individual suppliers, and that's really where we should be aiming for.
Totally agree. I think those who are out in front in different practices, the more they can just share what worked, what didn't, and the more the rest of us who are catching up in areas don't have to go down the same painful path, the faster we can move, right? So definitely don't want to cross any lines on antitrust or intellectual property. We don't want to threaten anyone's intellectual property protection, including our own, right? So.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think we are going to do that, and agree 100% with the statement earlier about stimulating competition and an even playing field. I think that's the intent, and also clarifying our requirement, and that's a two-way street. We know some things we'd like to have, and we don't know what we don't know, and part of this is just a discovery of what we don't know to facilitate these enablers.
Okay, Raj, next slide.
Okay, I'm showing the train one now. Is that what you see?
Yeah, so I think, I don't know, the way we see this working is the owners up front saying this is the value we want delivered. The EPC is bringing the technical knowledge on how to accomplish that, partnering with the owners, and then again allowing the industry, research academics, anyone with industry knowledge that says, oh, you want to be able to accomplish that, here's what it takes, and here's the piece that I have a solution to contribute to. So we see some of those solutions being provided by the industry and some being provided by Fiatech members, but hopefully in the end we understand what it takes to get, for example, integrated materials management working in the capital project industry, and we understand how the pieces have to fit together and who's got which knowledge and which pieces. So, next slide.
I think you've pretty much covered this one already.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, all of
so any questions about the role of the owner, I guess, that we're asking you guys to come play? Go back one slide, French. I mean, this is sort of it. We keep saying we want this result. Now it's really time to come in and help get to it, drive it. Can you guys tell me if you're not already actively engaged in the PATs, what your barriers are? Or is everybody on the phone already engaged in something?
It's one of the perspectives we have from Shell is, we all have day jobs, which is to deliver projects and operate assets and so on. And recognizing that often this does need to be led by owners to some extent, but we don't want to be the only ones thinking of what the requirements are, while the suppliers deliver what we think we want, and then we end up with an endless, very expensive iteration towards what we really need. So we'd really appreciate having some thinking partners along the road to bounce ideas around and get there faster. And that's sometimes what we miss.
No, I agree. With trying to do this for Dow, it's hard to know it all, right? You just can't get your hands around it all. So having somebody to talk to, and also having folks who are out there doing it come talk and partner with us, I think is key.
And
this is Brad. I was going to say, this is Brad Cunningham with Lubrizol, and we're just starting to look at Fiatech. I mean, we had just found out about it through PIP. We're members of PIP. So I'm trying to get senior management to start looking into this and then start improving our project processes and contracting strategies and all those kinds of things. So those are things that we're looking at also.
Yeah, great. I'm glad you called in, Brad. If people have said, why do you have so many success enablers for different things? But then you go read them individually for any of the PATs, and you go like, yeah, you're right. We need to know how much it costs us to do things now. Okay, well, who has a methodology to do that, or whatever? And you read through the smorgasbord of different success enablers, and you go like, well, if I had an organization that did all these things, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Well, yeah, and if you go and look at CII, it gives you a good idea of the things you should be doing. But how do I implement those is the big question.
Yeah, exactly.
So while I understand the goal, I'm trying to find out more. My understanding is that this is going to try to put some framework of, if you implement it this way, it should help you to get that end result.
Right.
If you try to follow this process.
Right.
Which today you can go out and buy those. You can pay, what's the name of the company? Heck, I can't find it right now. What is it? IPA.
Right. Yeah, this is really reduction to practice oriented, right? But it's passion, like saying, I was telling Deb when we first were setting this stuff up that Deb will say, well, look, if you don't have this, then we can't have that. That's not acceptable. You've got to get that done. And so now there's context behind every single thing you do, rather than these little flashes of brilliance and technology. There's an overall flow of things that need to be in place and occurring in order to be able to realize this.
And you said something that made me think, is that technology is not always the answer to everything.
Oh yeah.
You do have to have some work processes to be able to utilize technology, and that's we tend to struggle a little bit with that here is that we put all this technology in, but we don't have any work processes to maximize the use of that technology.
Yeah, and then it fades away. That's that whole change readiness stuff we've done, which is pat number one. Because if you don't create an environment that embraces it, then why did you do it? Yeah.
That's exactly, we have had that. We've had massive failures with implementation of Field Bus.
Yep.
And now nobody wants it because it wasn't implemented properly, and they didn't do what you said, the readiness for that change readiness.
We should talk. It's hunter@fiatech.org. You can send me an email. We can talk. But you're exactly right. It's really frustrating. Technology is just an interesting thing, but the systems that embrace it and capitalize it and need it are the most cool things that you can get. Right. Anyway, I'm a little concerned about time.
And I think that's the key is come together and share what we know and how we've done it and who's done it well and what did it take, because it's a very complicated problem to solve. So to really say how to engage in this, it's really what paths impact your company right now. What are you trying to solve or work on? And then we take that path. And for example, at Dow, we're just starting advanced work packaging, and we know our integrated materials management is not where it needs to be. So, those two paths very involved. But we need to look at success enablers and say, where are we? What do we have on the ground, and what do we not have on the ground? And then go out and pull in the expertise that's identified. So we're working this as a company to see how we can accelerate our own internal efforts. But then we're also saying, we have figured out how to do good front-end loading. We're willing to share with you guys, how we do that, how we're structured, how we staff front-end loading, how we think about it. So, we can also input knowledge into the different paths. So it's sort of a two-edged thing we're asking for folks to do, right? Get engaged, share what you're doing well, but then also pick up from others what they're doing well and apply it in your company. So the first real question is, which areas do you want to work on, and which ones are your company focused on right now? So, what do you think you've done well, and now you're willing to share? Those are really the two questions right now. Next slide.
Yep. So I guess one last point on this slide, Deb, is that you may not be the material management. You may not be responsible for material management, but someone in your organization is. So just because you don't have a responsibility that aligns with that particular productivity advancement, there's other folks that do. So the trick is you got to find folks that they need to act in their own self-interest, right? So if they say, well, I'm interested in material management, or I'm interested in design or change readiness or whatever, they can go to those paths and use it rather than have to carry the load yourself.
So at Dow, we've got actually have a multifunctional team working right now, and we're placing people into most of the paths. Willing to lead a couple because we think we're have something to contribute there, but then placing another. So this is a sort of a view from 6 months ago of how many folks are very interested. All the paths have kicked off, but definitely are still taking new members, if you will. All have been active and are underway. So if you're not yet engaged, please take a look at the different opportunity areas and decide who in your company should participate. One way to get a really good overview is to come to the Leadership Forum in New Orleans in September. And the other way is just get online and you look at the public information about PAT if you're not a member. But if you're a member, you can come into the PAT work area and begin to look at what we've got. Reg, anything else you want?
No, I'm gonna dive into a little bit of what the environment looks like, and actually, there's the PDF of all these slides has been loaded into a Slack environment that I'm going to be talking about here. So these are marked as backup, so I'm not going to spend time on them, but you can refer to them once you go into the Slack environment. There's no cost associated with going into the environment, and it's for any member of any owner organization. So if you're interested, or if you have a coworker that's interested in certain things, as long as I know your domain, I think I've got all the domains in there, but as long as your domain's in there, you can sign in and look at all the presentations and all the discussions that have taken place within the voice of the owner. So I won't spend time on this. This is just so. How many of you all are familiar with what's the Slack environment? What it's like? Or
Not me.
okay,
I'm not.
well, I've never sent a tweet to anybody. I've never involved in any kind of social media. I guess I'm a recluse. So this is really the conduit that lets everyone sit around a virtual table, bringing to the table their expertise and knowledge and insight, and sharing their perspectives about some success enabler. About, well, this isn't really that important. What's really important is this. And so there's a dialogue that you have to be able to support that's dynamic. And so we've come upon using Slack to help enable that. So it allows us to communicate around the world. You can set up public channels, and I'll show you some stuff about that. You can set a customized notification. You can share files. They're running about 2 million users a day. It's just a social environment that's really pretty. It's quite fascinating. You can sit down with a cup of coffee and read through any of the the ones I'm going to be showing you. Read through what the success enablers are and look at the discussion. So these are the ones that are already in Slack. So we have Voice of the Owner. It's open to any owner. You have an icon there. You have access to it. I'll give you the link for that. Or if you're a Fiatech member, you can go into these four Slack environments and look at all the success enablers and the discussions that are taking place. Is there any questions about that? So you can see how this makes sense if there's, for example, the 36 success enablers related to change readiness. Well, there's experts on one facet or one or two enabler, but not all of them. But if you decompose it and create an environment for groups to focus on different success enablers, then they can address those without being overwhelmed by just the sheer magnitude of all the different ways things won't work, which is typically what happens to us now. They can kind of decompose the challenge down and address the individual success enablers. Like, well, that's really important, but not as important as this. And here's how you go about solving it. And there might be 4 solutions. One might be for the chemical folks, one might be for the oil and gas folks, but at least you've articulated what the requirements are, what the challenges are, and what examples are of success and of solutions for that. So I don't know how quickly y'all can read, but here for the link up above is the link that you need to jot down. It's voice-of-the-owner.slack.com/signup, and you can go into that environment, and it will let you into the Voice of the Owner environment that I've been talking about. These are the owner organization domains that I have. So if you don't see your organization here, just let me know and I'll add it, and I apologize profusely, but this looks like a pretty good cross-section of our email that we sent out, that Deb sent out to you. But again, if you don't see it, or someone said that, well, we don't really use that email anymore, we use this, just send me an email or give me a call. It's hunter@fiatech.org, or my number is 512-992-8328, and I'll be happy to add you, okay? Is there any questions about that? This is where it gets really quite interesting to me. This is a good example, and Ken, I noticed you're with us from Siemens. This is an example of integrated material management. It's a Slack environment. It has like 42 success enablers for that. And the first one basically was, does your organization systematically capture whole costs associated with project materials management activities and compare it to should cost models to identify waste and prioritize refinement targets? Well, this is kind of like, care about some innovative thing unless I really understand how my resources are being consumed now, so I can appreciate what I'm gaining and why I should be doing this, right? And so right here, you see some interaction between Ken Fry and myself relating to another industry that actually can anticipate the cost of materials from different places in the world based on its characteristics. Ken, I don't know if your mic's on or not, if you want to talk about it, but Ken and I have been talking about this. So he's talking about something slightly different, which is how do you know how much something should cost from a supplier somewhere in the world? Ken, do you have any comments?
Uh, no, Reg, you summed it up pretty well.
Yeah, and so I watched the video. There's a video in this with respect to this success enabler. There's some guidelines that Siemens does, and it's really fascinating because it isn't quite what the success enabler was defined, but it's sort of like, well, there's other industries, and I think it was principally automotive, right, where they kind of know what their building block cost should be, and if there's a deviation from that, they're able to challenge their cost model, use their cost model to challenge the quotes that they're getting, right? So
That's that's correct. So the automaker, when they're sending out their quotes for materials to be made, whether they're components or systems, they have an idea what it should cost. So when they have negotiating leverage, right? And there's a database of labor and processing. A material might take 6 different processes, so all that information's in the database to help in that case, the automaker understand the should cost.
yeah, and consistent with the antitrust discussion we had before, we wouldn't build a cost model for a pipe that has these dimensions. What we do is talk about what an environment looks like that allows you to build a cost model. And depending on if you're an EPC or an owner, in your contractual requirements, you would populate the cost model with the information per your relationship with the owner. So what's nice about this Slack environment is that you can see that it allows you to establish notifications. It allows you to set teams and accounts. It allows you to identify things you think are really important to you. You can designate something being public or private. You can send direct messages. You can upload files, which is what Ken did and what I've been doing for the voice of the owner. You can write rich text messages. But at the end of the day, what you really have in the far right-hand corner here is you can essentially review and participate in discussion threads that describe the challenge and identify viable solutions. So you could see how you could go to this particular success enabler and start reading through the discussion that Ken and I are having. And as you progress through them, you go like, well, shit, they figured it out. I understand now. Well, I don't think it'll work for me, but I understand what this is. And you can move on to the next one. It isn't like you have to ask someone to give you some insight and something like that. It's all self-contained, and there's a logical thread and a timeline of all the observations that took place regarding this. Any questions about that? Okay. So this will be in a PDF. It's been loaded into the Slack environment, but you have these kinds of discussions that take place with what I just described. What are who's involved, what are the stakeholders, and people, we talk about the endpoint of saving this much with respect to each one of the paths, but there's also incremental benefits. So if you look at any success enabler, it has some sort of value. And so you aren't really waiting on the final finale of all these success enablers being addressed with solutions. You actually are harvesting incrementally benefits as you need them for your organization. So here's some examples of what's been uploaded in material management. The first one is a value-driven holistic approach to productivity improvement planning. This is a very lengthy document. It has about 100 pages, but it takes you all the way from points of origin all the way through to installation and ongoing operations, and helps you understand how to decompose and identify sources of cost and prioritize it and run models against it. So that document already exists in material management. The other document is predictive performance indicators that we've talked about in the past. It's a way to anticipate the likelihood of future events. It's not anything like KPIs. This is actually a tool that tells you the likelihood of something happening 6 months from now. as opposed to saying, well, we aren't going to get the spool today, we've got to do something else. This will tell you there's a 35% likelihood that your spool won't be available in 6 months. And then you can take action to preemptively avoid that. It uses neural nets. It's really, really quite fascinating. Of course, I'm biased. I came up with it, but it is fascinating. So this is an example of how you can upload insights into potential solutions that help you gain the visibility, predictability, and control that you might want on your project. You need to interrupt me if there's questions, okay? We also have this thing that we're doing where we're creating these little mini videos. They're like no more than 10 minutes. They're like 5 to 10 minutes. And so, for example, on change order reduction initiated by owners, we had 2 videos. We actually have 3, but one hasn't quite finished yet. But one was why change orders take place, which was a 10-minute, actually a 5-minute presentation. It's in the Voice of the Owner's site. But it gives you insight into why change orders take place. There's Saul Hernandez made a presentation at our leadership forum. He talked about how Era Energy has been able to reduce their change orders by 70%. And you all can bet that we really were friendly with Saul after he started talking about that. Quite fascinating about how he essentially reconciled his 3D models and kept them in lockstep with the as-built configuration. And then Deb's already mentioned that change order ripple cost impact from Floor, Mike Pye, where they have a way to anticipate what the cost is based on the complexity of the change order and where they are in the project execution.
So, Rich, just on this one, for an example, is to me the benefit of what we're talking about here is look at we just took some academic work, some work by the owner, and some work by an EPC, and if I now look at what's the state of the possible on reducing owner changes, I now have 3 perspectives that I can take into Dow and really understand and say, okay, where are we on this topic, and what do we have and what do we not have? And it really does take probably all 54 success enablers to totally get there, but at least I have a starting point now that I didn't have before. So to me, that's the power of the PAT, is to get all the perspectives on the table and all the pieces, and then maybe put it together into a total solution. So.
Yeah, and you can see these little mini videos. Like Ken, you and I should do one with respect to material cost projecting, right? Yep. So again, that if you're not a Fiatech member, we really would like you to be, because everyone has expertise, and owners are really the catalyst for change now. Everyone's recognized that. Please attend the Fiatech Leadership Forum. You can also you can log into the Voice of the Owner Slack environment. If you can't get in, let me know and I'll help you. If you are not comfortable with how it's used, I'll be glad to just call in. We'll set up a go-to meeting and let you and your team, and I'll just walk through sort of how it works. Look at your success enabler touch points, which paths you're interested in. We really want you to be involved with us. So I think we're almost done.
Hunter, what is your phone number again? I didn't write it down earlier.
I'm in Central Time, so don't. I get up incredibly early, but I go to sleep incredibly early. It's 512-992-8328.
512. That's Austin?
Yep.
Okay.
Just so you know, Reg works best from 4 to 7 a.m. So just be careful.
What's that?
I said, just be careful. Reg works best from 4 to 7 a.m.
Yeah. If you want to talk to stupid Reg, try to talk to me after 3 o'clock Central Time.
Well, I'm in Central Time. I'm in Deer Park, Texas, so Houston area.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, we should be talking then. And anything I can do to help anyone that's on this call and who listens to this recording to help you become familiar with productivity advancement targets and help you communicate within your organization, I'm more than happy to do that. I honestly, sometimes people have heard this from me, and I apologize to you that have heard it, but if you do a search on me, you can see that I have about 30 patents, and I get up and say, it's really not the patents that matter. It's the systems that I needed the technology for that didn't exist that are the really cool things. And so it's systems that we have to worry about. It's systems that embrace technology that we have to be able to effectively accomplish. And that's really what, at the end of the day, what we need to do. And the catalyst from an owner perspective is that at the end of the day, you're trying to harvest, you're trying to avoid 33%, potentially 33% in cost. And you're trying to get 10% faster in your execution. Right.
And right now, this is Brad Cunningham again with Lubrizol. I'm the one exploring this right now because I just found out about Fiatech at the PIP annual conference. So exploring where it fits and trying to get our senior management to consider this as a improvement process that would help us a lot. So we're getting benefit from the PIPs right now. This would be a good benefit for us. Also, I see it would be on multiple. I'm not a materials management person, but I can know that we could use some improvement in that area. I know because I have to deal with it in engineering.
Oh, it's pervasive, and they all interact. I mean, it's blurred.
Yes, they do.
It's so blurred that you can't think of it as a silo because that's the problem we ran into, right? And so.
Yeah, and our organization's very siloed, and those silos are getting a little less. The walls are getting thinner in the silos. So they're getting a little better.
Yeah.
But we need to talk a little more and see what we're not members, obviously, and see where we could go with that. So we'll probably talk some more offline.
Yep. And I go down. My son and his wife live in Houston. I go to Houston fairly frequently. Whatever it takes to help. And we may have met. I've made presentations about anti-counterfeiting at PIP conferences before. So maybe we've met. Good. Is there, again, this is another thing, but I really do think it's worthwhile for anyone who's listening to this recording or participating in this discussion today to seriously consider coming to the conference. These conferences, we have a general Fiatech conference, which is technology showcase and things like that. This is really the roll up your sleeves and sit across the table from your peers. And this conference is really the most fascinating because you're addressing specific challenges and you're understanding someone else has gone through it and someone else has gotten results. And what's also important about this leadership forum is that if you're thinking about doing something and someone says, "Oh yeah, I tried that, but it didn't work," you go, "Thank God, I didn't waste time on doing that." So I just can't encourage you more to go attend this. Is there any other question? Again, this is Reg, R-E-G, Hunter. My phone number is 512-992-8328. My email is hunter@fiatech.org. And if you
do have a question before we get off.
Yeah.
What does PAT stand for? I may have missed that.
Productivity Advancement Target.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the shifts we're really trying to do is we at least this owner doesn't want to talk about technology for technology's sake. I want to talk about how work best technology and people come together to deliver a value, productivity improvement for Dow. So I think that's really what we're at. We're asking the owners to step up to say, we need to drive this because we are the ones who, primarily benefit from the result of getting the capital investment lowered through productivity improvements. So anybody else have a closing comment? I know several of you on the phone have been actively engaged, and I guess the momentum's building from my perspective, and I think we're getting ready to do some really, really great work.
I appreciate the invitation to sit in and listen. It does help a little bit understand a little more what Fiatech's trying to do. So
anyone else? Or we'll see you in September.
Great. Thank you, everybody. And take care. Stay safe.
Thanks, Deb and Reg. Take care.
See you. Bye.
Bye.